Good morning and welcome. I'm in Arizona time, but welcome to Wendy's We Do podcast. We're just starting this now, so we forgive for all the technical problems and anything like that. And we are so excited, to welcome Sarah Watson, who is the chairwoman. I was the one who made her change her title. It was originally chairman, and I was like, you're not a man. I'm like, you should be chairwoman. Anyways, chairwoman of Bartle Bogle Hegarty, one of the biggest creative agencies in the entire world. It's a part of Publicis, which is a big public company. And she has made it to the ceiling, broke it, the whole thing in the advertising world. And we are so excited to have you, Sarah. Woohoo!
Thank you for having me, Wendy. Very, very excited to be here.
So Sarah, you're obviously, you have your like, British authoritarian like accent and everything. Where were you brought up? I mean, because, when we hear your voice, it's like, I got to listen to you. Like you sound like so professional. Oh. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Yes, so I will, Wendy. So, a lot of people, they think when they hear an English accent, I think they think we're, part of the royal family and we're part of the crown and all of that. No. So I grew up in the northwest of England between Manchester and Liverpool. So four massive football teams, anyone who follows the Premier League. So that's Everton and Liverpool and Man City and Man United. I was right in the middle. So it was an obsession where I was growing up. My parents are public school teachers, both of them. And everyone in their lives, all their friends, everyone that we mixed with, they were all public school teachers. And so I never met a doctor or a lawyer or a business person, an entrepreneur. These were all ideas completely beyond me. And the only thing that I did do was that I subscribed to British Vogue. And actually, I had Vogues going back from 1979, actually. I had every single copy.
So Vogues, what were you into, fashion?
I was obsessed with fashion. So this was the thing, so thinking about how I got to this career, all I knew was that I didn't want to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a public school teacher. I wanted to do something completely different. And I knew that I just wanted to do something to do with Vogue. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if I wanted to be a designer or a marketer, I didn't know, and I didn't care. I just knew that it was something to do with that. And so I went to university to study English literature. And at the end of my second year, I think, I wrote to two people that I wanted to work for, Paul Smith and Vivienne Westwood. So both still going strong. Anyone who's into their fashion, I mean, both two OG British designers, just fantastic. I mean, both of them now probably in their late 70s, still going strong, global brands. And I got a note back from Paul Smith, actual Paul Smith, saying, yeah, come and work in my office, in my atelier in Floral Street. So I was there. I was like, but I was a kid, obviously I was like carrying the...
Going on about this, and you're just like, oh, it just happens to be Paul Smith, accepted me into his fashion house. How does that happen? Were you sending like a ton of letters out? Did you have a connection there? What was that?
It's a great question. And I think this is the difference between now and we are talking, this is 1992. And like internships weren't a thing. They didn't exist. Remember, obviously, you were there. We didn't have cell phones, or you might have had a cell phone. In England, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have anything. People wrote letters, and the idea of doing an internship wasn't a thing. And I just wrote, and he said, yeah. So really, I was just in his office, I was a mail girl basically. But what it gave me this insight that I didn't want to work in fashion because I could see that unless you were a designer, there wasn't anything really interesting to do. But there was still something about glamour and image and commerce and entrepreneurship, and there was still something in that. And that's, I think, what led me to advertising, because then I started to sort of go and visit kind of, so this was back in the early 90s, they had something called a milk round at universities in England, where I'm sure there was something similar in America, where people from big companies would come and do presentations at universities and try and get these kids to come and join them. And I would go and I'd visit like the Ernst and Young ones, or Coopers and Lybrand, or whoever it was in those, all these big accounting firms. And these people, they didn't look like me, they didn't talk like me, they didn't feel like me. But when I saw the advertising people, I was like, oh, I'm home. These are my people. Funny, charming, cool, but most importantly, wearing what they want. And it's a terrible thing, but I just wanted to, I had a quite strict upbringing. I just wanted to wear what I wanted. And I wanted
like,
to bring around
did you have to wear a uniform to school? Like, because your parents were public school teachers. Is that like in all of England? Do they all, when you're in England and you go to school, everybody has to wear a uniform?
Yeah. That's how I grew up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get there. And so which was the first company that you ended up at?
So this is a great story. You'll love this. So I actually went, it's very, very hard to get a job, as it still is today, and I
think it's harder right now. I feel bad for anybody looking for a job now. It must be the worst time in history. Yeah.
Exactly. At least there were jobs in those days. There were thousands of people who wanted them. So we're talking, this is now 1996. So this is even before the Tony Blair government, we're back in the midst of time. And I actually went to, I was teaching English in Romania. And one of the girls that I was teaching, one of the women that I was teaching, happened to mention to me that she was the PA to the managing director of BBDO Bucharest. And I said, oh, can I come and intern for him? So I went to work in Romania I interned in BBDO Bucharest there for a while. And from there, I applied to every single ad agency, like 40 applications. And I got a job, and I got a couple of jobs, but I got one job in particular at a place called BNP DDB, which is now Adam and Eve DDB, which is probably the greatest agency in the world at the moment, or one of the great ones. So still going strong. And so I got there, and so I moved to London on the Saturday. So all my life, all I'd wanted to do was move from the northwest of England to London. I moved to London on the Saturday. Princess Diana died on the Sunday.
And that's a big deal, like in England. I mean, that's...
So the whole of London is shut down.
Your main...
Crazy. Like,
right.
It's crazy. And then, and this is a slightly tangent, I start my job on the Monday and I meet my husband on the Tuesday. And I knew instantly that I was... Yeah. So it was a big planetary...
Seriously. Well, did he... Wait. I mean, Sarah, like, okay, so I want to go back. I want to know everything about, like, how did you become, like, this advertising creative genius? But, like, so you met your husband the second day. Where'd you meet him? Was it on, like, the tube? Where did you meet him?
He was a graduate trainee at this agency in the year above me. And he was doing a presentation on, you remember, we used to have acetates, you'd write it on this clear plastic and you'd put it on a projector. He was doing a presentation about what it was like to be a graduate trainee. And I was like, here he is, done, I'm done, here he is. And that's 1997, yeah.
Wait, now you're there. You're there, and of course there's like landscapers at the house I'm at right now.
Why not?
Anyway, so first of all, you're now in London. You meet did you know it was your husband right away? I mean, you were like second day.
I knew it was my husband right away.
It was like that easy. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah. Why I now only have a 3-year-old child and a 6-year-old child is that's another topip for another podcast, but anyway.
So now, congratulations, of course. Wait, so now you have, so now you're in London. Now, I mean, is it tough at that time, like for women in advertising? And is it, because I remember Saatchi was like a big name and you have all these things.
I wanted to lead. I knew that I wanted to lead, and the culture that I was in was pretty patriarchal. It just how it was. It was led by men, and it was pretty aggressive and serious-minded, and that's what had made it great in many ways. But I have a very different leadership style. I'm much more nurturing, I'm much more sort of forgiving, and and I hand over power to other people. That's kind of my style. And I knew that the two things that I knew I wanted to lead, and I knew that I wanted to get pregnant. And so I'm in my mid-30s now, and I'm like, oh God, the clock's ticking. I need to take a leadership role before I had children. And it was just, obviously, mothers make great leaders, etc. But for me personally, I just knew that for me to be the leader that I wanted to be, I wanted to start off before I had children. So I actually went back to the place where I started, BNP to be head of their strategy department, which is probably the biggest strategy department in the world at that point. They have a very famous world-class econometrics unit. We had like a research facility. They had sort of digital department. Anyway, so it was kind of really, really huge. It was about 45 people reporting into me. And my hair started to fall out. And I went to the doctor, and she said to me, have you had a shock in the last 6 months? And I assumed it's because I dye my hair. That was why my hair was falling out, because I carry guilt about, bleaching my hair and things. But she said to me, have you had a shock in the last 6 months? Have you got divorced or moved house or changed job? And I was like, oh yeah, I changed job. She's like, okay, this is your body telling you that something's got to change. And I didn't know what to do. I was a bit broken because here I wanted to get pregnant. I was in my dream job. I was leading this incredible department, but something was wrong and something was missing. And at that point, I get a call from the previous chairman, an amazing woman called Emma Cookson, who founded BBH New York. I just get a little text from her saying, can you meet me for breakfast? I just want to talk one-to-one. And my husband immediately says, she wants to hire you. And I'm like, no, what? Why didn't she no? And so I go to breakfast with her, and obviously she wants to hire me for me to move to New York, back to BBH. And I knew immediately that I had to do it, that I had no choice, that I wouldn't be able to live with myself. It's my dream to move to New York. It's my dream to be back at BBH, which I love so deeply. But here was the thing, I was trying to get pregnant. I was 36. I was like, it didn't feel like the right moment to be upping my whole life. And my husband, he'd just taken a massive new job. He does the same job as me. He was on the cover of Campaign. It was like front page news. I was like, oh my God, I can't move us to New York. But I knew that I would break my own heart if I didn't. And that this would destroy me. And so that was, for me, I would say that was my biggest moment of growing up ever, because the other thing I had to sort of grow up around was my mother, because, my mother, she was waiting to have grandchildren and she was so excited. And I thought, how can I tell my mother I'm moving to New York? And but it really was a big moment of, now I think what they'd say in Jungian analysis as disindividuation from my family. It was me moving away and really growing up for myself. And I moved to New York, and it was the greatest thing. My husband quit his job. We left. We packed up our whole house. And if any of you have ever done this, and you see the van go around the corner with every single thing you own in it, and you're like, I don't care if I never see any of this again. I am off to New York. And we were reborn.
So wait, your husband just quit his job? He's like, Sarah, we're going to follow you. I mean, what was how did that all work?
Oh my God, Wendy, you're so brilliant. You're like a therapist. You find all this stuff. No, my husband had a very, very difficult time with all of this, obviously. And Emma Cookson, the chairman who was hiring me.
That's a big deal, right?
It was a very big deal. Hi Scott, thank you. Yeah, you've moved. Yeah, absolutely. I remember she says what I said to her was, this is my calling, I have to do it, but it's going to take me 4 months to convince my husband. And that is really what it took. Because he's not a traveler. I'm someone who just lives in the future, but he's more of a homebody. He's more settled. He'd never lived in another country, he'd never really traveled and all that sort of stuff. But in the end, that's a whole other story, but he decided, and he came on this journey with me, for which I'm forever grateful. I mean, I'm just so blessed with the right choice of partner here. And we got there, and we were reborn. And my husband even now says, like, he'd never got me to like buy any, we'd never owned property or anything, and he had always, I would never commit to anything. I'd never buy shelves, or because I was like, I wasn't here, I wasn't home. And he said, like, literally the moment I got in, it was like, okay, right, we're buying shelves, I'm buying furniture, I'm doing this. It was like, whoa, I committed. And it was just incredible. And I got pregnant within 18 months, you know, and because it was like, now I'm home, now I'm doing the thing that I love with the people that I love. I'm in the city where I want to be. And it all came good in the end. So that, yes, wow.
And what about, okay, so now you're in New York, you're dealing with New Yorkers, right? Yeah. You're dealing with a whole new culture, right? Yeah. And and so how was that experience, you know, coming in and dealing with people? And, I would assume that people in England are a little bit more stuffier and stuff like that. And like where New Yorkers are really direct, right? And they're like, well, what about this? So how did that all come together and managing them and creating the BBH New York?
Another brilliant question. And there's lots of ways that I can answer this. I mean, one of them is the difference between advertising in England, in the United Kingdom, or advertising in Europe, actually, versus advertising in America. And I think partly in the UK, because of the BBC, because people are so used to just having quality television, and that advertising just had to be of incredible quality. Otherwise, people would just think it was just cheap and disgusting. And so that's why a lot of very, very brilliant, clever people, very creative people, who probably in America would find advertising a bit distasteful, a bit beneath them. In England, they go into advertising. That's partly why you have these incredible agencies that take over the world. I think they sort of come up from here. But in America, it's more of a sales culture. And people are a lot more comfortable with selling and telling it how it is and getting out there, and, you know, and so tonally there is a difference. I think also Europeans, and I know immediately when I have a European in the room or an American who has spent a lot of time in Europe, because they have a different attitude to brands. Because Europeans really understand the value of brand and the fact that just because you're selling something, you can sell it today, but like when you stop spending, it's all over. You've just got to keep spending if you're just selling. But when you build a brand, when you're telling a richer story that people love and they just hold with them, then you're in a very different conversation. And even if you stop spending people on advertising, people still love the brand and they're still part of it. So there's just a sort of a different discernment. I think American clients, there's a lot more MBAs. People are very, very business literate. I mean, very few of my clients back in the day in England would have an MBA or have heard of an MBA. But here, people are very business literate. They're very, very serious minded about business. And so those are a couple of dimensions. But just on a personal level, the English way is, you know, if you're giving a recommendation, you say, well, you could see it like this, and you could see it like this. And these are all very interesting. And then there's a middle ground, and you could do it like this. In America, people don't want to hear that. I'm generalizing to make a point. People want to say, I'm paying you, tell me what to do. Tell me your perspective. And so I had to learn that very quickly. Okay, look, this is what I think, this is what you should do. And I think I'm still learning, you know, one is still, you know, a foreigner.
I have a question. You know, your accent, it cracks me up, right? Because I have a British mom. And so I think feeling a little, you know, like when did you feel like you could kind of, people just look, you know, like took, you know, management and would look at you and be like, of course we'll do that. Or of course we think it's great, right? Like I think you might, I just feel like that, you know, because of the fact that the way you articulate yourself with the accent, that it would really, I think you could sway people to say, you know what, I agree with you, because you almost feel like this is, you know, we're talking to the royal family here.
So it's a double-edged sword, the accent, I would say, because I think there is an extent to which people have this association that people are clever, people with English accents are clever. I would say on the other side of it, there is hostility. Sometimes I feel that there is some hostility, that people think that the English think that they're a bit better than other people, and people don't like that, and so it's a card that I try never to play. I'm just myself, and I speak out, and most of the time I forget that we've all got different accents. It's ironic. My 3-year-old daughter has really got a very, very thick American accent, and in a way that she's like pushing herself. She's like pushing the boundary. And there's only times like that I even notice that we speak differently. I've been here nearly 10 years at this point, so I kind of forget it.
All right, so now you're in New York. You've got Netflix, you got Google Chrome, you've got some of the biggest brands in the world. So how did you bring those brands on? How did that all come together?
A lot of these things, they come in, working at an agency, I'm sure it's like a lot of businesses, clients come in through so many doors. They come in through so many different doors. People, and one of the doors is people see your reel. They see something, and this happens so much. They see something out in the world. They're like, I want one of those. CMO says, I want one of those. I like Google's, who's it? Right, get them on the phone to me. Which is why, in a way, it's so important that you have an incredible reel, because in a way that's your first point, that's your first shop window for yourselves as an agency. Then there's some that are personal relationships, and then there's some that are a lot of these awful pitch processes that happen, where often, again, I don't know if people in other industries are familiar with this, but some of these pitches, they will go on for 4 months, 9 months, a year, when they'll have like 4 or 5 agencies going through different rounds and churning, just giving all these creative recommendations and then changing and then going back. And I think that model ultimately is what's killing advertising, because that costs so much money and it burns people out. And ultimately the clients don't get what they need, because the only way we do the work that a client needs is when we're working with the client, where we're in an intimate relationship with them. So the industry is really changing massively. But to answer your question, there's lots and lots of doors that these clients come in through.
Okay, so now it's, COVID, we're in the pandemic, and it's just like the whole world's a mess, right? How have you been able to steer the ship during this time?
So, for me, so I'm a strategist by background. So there's lots of it's probably worth just saying that. In an ad agency, there's lots of different roles. You have the creatives who are writing the ads, or writing the whatever it is that we make these days. And that you have art directors, people who are more visual, and then you have copywriters, people who are more verbal. Obviously, those roles are changing now. You have producers, you have people who are actually making this stuff. You have account management, who are people who are overseeing the whole process of dealing with the client. And then you have strategists, which is what I am, who are looking into the business and looking into the business dynamics and culture and trends and consumers, and understanding what is going on in this business and for people, and what can we do to most powerfully impact the outcomes for this client. So that's my job. So, and I love it. It's such a brilliant, interesting job, because you get to do lots of different things. You get to use lots of different sides of your brain. Sometimes you're out talking to consumers, sometimes you're looking at data, and everything in between. And so I'm a strategist. And what I really found very, very interesting and nourishing kind of this year was the way the conversations with clients changed. So normally, in peacetime, in normal circumstances, clients are like, okay, God, well, I really need to find 3.5% growth in Q4 or what have you. But the questions that were coming up now was much, much bigger and more existential ones, like, who am I? What am I doing? Why are we here? What is our purpose? And I love that. For me, that's really what motivates that. Big, meaty questions about brands and things. So, and actually one of the big conversations we were having, unfortunately, was with Quibi. I don't know if people followed the fortunes of Quibi. So I was dealing with Meg Whitman and Jeffrey Katz.
Did you say Quibi?
Yeah.
Wait, so Quibi was a client?
Yeah.
No! Wow! Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
God
Okay.
love
So
them.
how was that? How was that?
Oh, that was incredible. I mean, I honestly think it's a brilliant product.
Did you work with Doug Herzog?
I can't
Did you
remember.
work with Doug Herzog?
I don't know.
Okay, because he was like the president.
Oh, right.
Anyways, go ahead.
They've had a lot of changes. Uh, I mean, so people, I don't know if people have been familiar, if you're following like the bitchy gossip in the business press this year, Quibi was basically sort of 5-minute Netflix on your phone. And but run by Jeffrey Katzenberg, who started DreamWorks, and Meg Whitman, who's the CEO of IBM. So these incredible, very famous business people, and with like $1.25 billion of backing. And I do.
I think it was like 1.6 actually. I think it was 1.6 billion. It was like I was just like reading about it. Astronomical.
It was vast. And so we had been, and this was our LA office, and actually this is to answer partly back to your question about COVID. It was brilliant for me because I was able to get involved in teams that I would have never have been able to do before. So I just became part of this is our LA office who runs Quibi, and I was able to really be involved with them in a totally day-to-day basis, which would have been previously unheard of. Anyway, I'm sure we've all got our own parallels of that, but so Quibi, it's basically this brilliant. So it's Netflix in 5 minutes, and they very famously have just gone under and just called it a day and all the rest of it. But it was that, I mean, that's just a really fascinating kind of business case, because we had to launch that product for them before we'd seen it. And this is very true of a lot of agencies and a lot of products. Often, you know, for example, I launched the PlayStation 4 before we even were told that there was a PlayStation 4 coming out, because it was so top secret. I mean, some of these things are so top secret. And, you know, if we'd have leaked it, we'd have got $1 million fine and all this stuff. And every single, you know, document we did had to be kind of time stamped and password, you know. So anyway, so this was like what it was with Quibi. We had to launch this product that we'd never seen. We didn't really know what it was going to be. And so that was at the very, very start of the year. But obviously we'd been working on the campaign for the previous 6 months. And then, of course, so they launch. I mean, they launch on like March the 18th or something. You know, how unlucky is that really? Or how lucky is it? Because I think time will tell that, you know, we'd all gone into this thinking, hey, here, Quibi, here are these 5-minute high quality videos on your phone. People are going to watch it when they're commuting. People are going to watch it when they're waiting in line for a coffee. People are going, and actually, but here's the truth. The fact that people were confined to their houses in lockdown actually made them more wanting to watch quality entertainment, but actually also more conscious of their time. Because I think people got tired with, oh my God, I know that if I go onto Netflix, it'll be 2 a.m. and I'm still scrolling. And whereas with Quibi, you know that within 6 minutes, you're going to see something satisfying. And so for me, it was ahead of its time. But I think, you know, Katzenberg's vision for it was I mean, and you know, he is so brilliant. Was a Hollywood content vision. I think it just needed to find its place in people's lives. I'm very conscious, actually. I'm probably under NDA for all of this, and I shouldn't be like talking too much. But it's a brilliant product. Someone will revive it, and they'll do a brilliant job.
Things that, like, you know, so you've got all these clients, you have these amazing, one of the things I know about you that I think everyone here would be like, oh my gosh, I love the fact, when was the day you're like, I'm going to go to an ashram in India? What was that point in your career where where you were like, I'm going to go meditate by myself for a week? Was it a week or 10 days?
10 days.
How long was it?
So
10 days?
Yeah, but 10 days.
Okay, so what point in your career? Okay, so what point in your career were you like, okay, wait a minute, you know, we're just done with the Netflix campaign. We just finished with Google Chrome. I'm just going to take 10 days and not talk to anyone for 10 days and go to India. How did that come up? Because I think that's like a really interesting thing to kind of, think about in everyone's life right now, especially with COVID and with what's going on and everyone trying to find meaning in this world. What was that point in your life? Where was your husband? Where were your kids? Go ahead.
Yeah, wow. So what Wendy's talking about, because it's funny, so this is 12 years ago at this point, when meditation wasn't really a thing, because now we all have meditation apps and we have Headspace and we talk about it and we understand mental health. But 12 years ago, that really wasn't a thing. And I got very interested in silence, actually, and the power of silence. And I'll tell you, actually, I saw a documentary about the Innocence Project, about men who'd been on death row for like 30 years. In solitary confinement for 30 years. He had been in silence for all those years. And I was just struck by the wisdom, because you think you would go mad, and you'd be so angry. But I was really struck by the wisdom and the calmness. And I just thought, there's something in this, there's something in silence. And so I did Vipassana, and again, people might be familiar with it. So Vipassana is something, anyone can do it for free. I did a 10-day noble silence where you meditate, you get up at 4:30 a.m., you have your last meal of the day at 11:30 in the morning, and you sit without moving for 10 hours. So you do it in chunks of 2 hours, but after the first 3 days, you're not really supposed to move your body at all. And it's agony. It's absolute agony, because particularly us in the West, we're not used to sitting cross-legged on the floor.
Right. How many people in the program when you first got there, and how many people make it through the full 10 days versus not the first 10 days?
So I think there were probably, I was in this meditation hall, I think there were probably 50 men and 50 women on each side of the meditation hall. You would hear people screaming in the night, and every day people would drop off. I don't know how many people, at least around a half probably made it through. Because I think we go into meditation thinking it's all candles and smells and fun. It's hardcore. It is a dark look into your own soul, and sitting in pain in your body and observing that pain, and sitting still with it and witnessing it. And that's what meditation is. But I will say that the one thing that this did bring me to was natural childbirth as well. And I had both my children in my apartment upstairs, actually, partly because I'd now had the experience of sitting with extreme pain. And I knew that if you do it, if you can find the right way, that the body is capable of doing it. But anyway, that's another podcast. That's for another time.
Okay, so just, it's the 9th day, in your head, you're like, I can do this? Or was it like, I'm going to do this because I made the commitment to myself? Or was there any point in that 10 days that you weren't speaking to anyone, you're in complete silence, you're sitting there cross-legged or whatever you're doing, like it's the way like the monks, like you see them and they go like that kind of thing. Okay. And so, was there any point in that time when you, in your head, were you thinking to yourself, wow, I want to be more successful at work? What was going through your mind at the time?
Oh, so, we can talk about this. The first 3 days, it's like taming a wild horse. The mind cannot deal, particularly if you're not a seasoned meditator, the mind just cannot cope with the silence. And you go crazy, you're going crazy. And I think you basically, after the first 3 days, which is a big threshold, you realize that you have to submit. And if you don't submit, you're going to go mad. You won't be able to cope with it. And actually, what you very quickly realize is that there is the pain itself, or the boredom, or whatever it is. Then there is the little voice in your head which says, "Oh, it's not fair. I can't do this," and "Oh, everyone's better than me," and that is the voice that, like, I was like, will you shut up? I can't bear to hear you anymore. Will you shut up? And the pain, I was okay with the pain. The pain was fine. The silence was fine. It was the little voice in my head, poor me, pity, pity, poor me. And then you realize that I've got to let it go. I have just got to shut up, and I've just got to submit to this, and I've just got to take it all in. So I was never thinking about my career. What you realize is that the only thing you're thinking about is, how can I submit to this silence, this absolute silence, with my whole being, so that there is no voice that comes in and says, poor me, because that's going to kill me. Anyway, this is a fascinating topic.
So now coming back to New York, you know, after this experience, how did that change in the way you worked, in the way you thought? You know, because obviously that was like an impactful, incredible thing you did for your soul, right? And so when you came back, so what was the turning point? Like when you came back, what changed in your life?
Wow, we're getting very deep now. I mean, it's ultimately, I think, probably, it made me able to cope with a lot of things that I wouldn't have been able to cope with otherwise. I think it made me able to deal with very, very difficult situations with a calmness that I wouldn't have had. You just get to physically experience, you get to have a taste of what it's like to sit with, I say, pain, trauma, difficulties, with calmness. You just get a taste of what that feels like, and once you've tasted it, you're like, oh, I can do this. And so I think it definitely made me a much better leader, a much more magnanimous leader, that I was able to hear people. Because, you know, normally, you know, when you're a leader, I'm sure lots of people on this call, you have so many people coming to you with, it's just constantly problems, trivial, this, that, she said this, he said that, like, what, you know, all this stuff. I want this money, why haven't I got this promotion? You know, constantly. And for me to just have the strength and the fortitude to be able to kind of embrace with magnanimity everybody's needs, everyone's just little human journey, and to work with that in a more powerful way. So I think it really was transformational for me.
Fantastic. All right. So, wow. I mean, I don't know if I could actually do that, but I do meditate every day. I live a meditative life.
Wow.
So wait, so, okay. So now we're here, we've gone through this career. What would be your advice to everybody right now, starting off saying, I want to get into advertising, I want to get into creativity, knowing it's a totally different time than when you started? What would be your advice to people?
Oh, wow. I love this industry so much, and I love creativity, and I love creative people. And it's true, it is really changing, and it's been gutted. It's been absolutely gutted. And the forces of digitization are really coming upon us. So, you know, obviously when I joined in the 90s, clients would say, I want a TV ad, or actually more often, I want 4 TV ads, and I'm going to run them in rotation, and I want them on air in a year's time. And that's what it would be. And now clients come to us and they're like, I've got no money, I've got no time, I don't even know what I need, but I just need to do something. And can we speak tomorrow? That's much, obviously I'm exaggerating to make the point, but that's kind of what it is. And I think if you're on for that ride, I think what is needed in this industry now are people who get popular culture, love popular culture, are just in the media, are in the conversation, I just love it, are just kind of observers and connoisseurs of human interaction in the digital space, and then can just harness that, can quickly action and harness that for powerful impact. So in a way, and I'm not like that, I'm more of a cerebral thinker. You know, in a way, the way the industry was 20 years ago is much more suited to me. So I think I think people who want to make, I mean, we also want makers. I think lots of the roles are hybrids. So whereas also I was a strategist and I was a pure strategist, so I was never expected to do anything other than strategy. I think these days, yeah, if you've got an idea, you want to make it, let's do it. Let's get it out there. Like, you know, all the skills are a lot more hybrid. But it is I've just had such a brilliant time. I've just had so much fun with very, very interesting people.
All right, but like, what would be your, like, a few words you would give someone saying, listen, what would be the steps you think they should do? Because like you got to be Paul Smith who gave you that thing. What would, you know, what is that little thing that you would say, being, you know, a manager of a lot of people, seeing the success of a lot, so forth?
I'd probably say make something. Make something. Because just, you know, we found, so my agency, we just did Black Owned Friday for Black Friday, and the president of my agency now, who's a Black woman who's phenomenal, she came up through the music industry, and so she was like, okay, I'm on the phone to Wycliffe, I'm on the phone to Chance. Let's get them to record jingles. Let's just do this. And so when Google said to us, oh, do you want to do a creds meeting? Instead of saying, oh, these are our creds, this is who we are, which is how we'd normally do it. It was like, we brought you an idea and we can make it tomorrow. Black Owned Friday, let's do it. And that's like, they did that like 6 weeks ago. And of course, Black Friday just happened. And so I think I'd want to see that in the people that I was hiring, people who've just made stuff. And it doesn't have to be beautiful and expensive and clever, just clever little things that just show that you're able to work at that pace.
Cool. All right. So now, Sarah, let's talk about Choose Women. Let's get that. Woohoo! So Choose Women. So this is kind of funny, everybody, that one of the things with our foundation we want to do is make the Wednesday after Thanksgiving the day to support women. And I had called on Sarah for 3 years. Like the first year, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm having a baby. I can't do it right now. The next year, she's like, I had the baby. Then the third year, she's like, all right, Wendy, come in. And that's how actually I became friends with Sarah. Woohoo! And so Sarah, talk a little bit about, you know, what we plan on doing and what we want to do for Choose Women, and how next year we really want to bring this all together, bringing all parties together and making this dream come true for women the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. Tomorrow, which is go ahead.
So the day after tomorrow, yes. We're still only Monday, Wendy. We're still only Monday.
Ah! I know, I'm losing like time and like everything. All right, cool.
So Wendy, first came to me, and I think after all these decades in advertising, I just look for ideas that are simple and powerful, and in a way crude in their simplicity. You don't want anything that's too intellectual or too heady or too complicated. But Wendy's vision was basically, you know, obviously you guys have Women's Entrepreneurship Day and final Thursday of November. And then Wendy wanted to create something that could involve everybody, absolutely everyone, that would set the internet alight, but also create a kind of Super Bowl annual moment that everyone would remember. So Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, Choose Women Wednesday. And so I just love the simplicity and the clarity of that, and the memorability, and the accessibility, the fact that anybody can use it, and the fact that it's not political, it's just upbeat, fun, inclusive, yada yada. So you'll see if you go to choosewomen.org, there's a beautiful website. BBH previously created that campaign, and it's beautiful millennial pink. And in a way, I always think the brand really is kind of Wendy. It's the exclamation point. It's all caps.
There's bright blue, bright pink, bright everything. So everyone, like, one of the things that's really cool is that, you know, Sarah did come on board, and you'll see it if you go to choosewomen.org. It's a campaign that we're creating to enable everyone to see the light and the reason why we should choose women, whether it's choosing women in art, finance, business, politics, sports, etc. And Sarah's grateful for that. So now, Sarah, now the big announcement. So Sarah, I can't believe it. Like, I read now, sum it up. Is it last week you announced? Tell us what's happening now.
So yes, so after nearly 20 years at BBH, I am actually leaving to become an executive coach. But it sort of feels left field maybe, but for me, this is an absolute straight line of kind of my career development. And actually we've been talking about the meditation, and that's actually probably a part of this, which is that I realized, particularly during COVID, you know, the conversation we were having about Quibi and having big existential conversations during lockdown about who am I and what am I was like, wow, these are the conversations that I'm most interested in, not the conversations about how can I get 2.8% growth amongst these users in Q4. No, who am I and what am I? And I just got to a stage where I just thought, how can I really spend the rest of my life having these conversations. And I didn't think it would be possible because obviously I'm so deep at BBH and I love it so much. It's been such a big part of my life. But I just sort of started putting my toe in the water and having a few conversations with people. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought this is truly my calling. And I feel I read this incredible book which I recommend to anyone who is of a certain age, which is called Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life by James Hollis, and I'm obsessed with it. And I think in it he talks about the fact that the first half of our life is always a bit messed up. It's always a bit, because we're just playing out all the traumas of our childhood and our coping strategies from our families and all the rest of it. And we do these jobs and we take things on. And then there comes a moment, and this happened to you, I think, Wendy, where you're like, actually, why am I doing this? There is something else that I can be doing. And I suppose this is when you pivoted to Women's Entrepreneurship Day. And it's been a bit the same for me, actually. I was like, wow, I love advertising, but it's the grand narratives that I'm interested in, the existential grand narratives of what is this brand? Why is it here? How can it behave? And not all clients always want to have those conversations, but I think human beings always do want to have those conversations. So that's what I'm doing. So if anyone is looking for an executive coach in 2021, ping me, find me on LinkedIn. I will be taking clients, but I'm going to train first. So yeah.
So exciting. Woohoo! All right, so does anybody have any questions? You could put them in the chat and we'll open it up if anyone has questions for Sarah. Woohoo!
Oh, do you know, Scott, I haven't read The Infinite Game, but I was clearing out my office last week and somebody had given it to me. So if you recommend it, I will get around to reading it. And hi, Letitia worked with Griffin. Wow, amazing. Hello.
That is funny. Any others? Woohoo! So Sarah.
Yeah.
Wait. All right, so Sarah, thank you again for everything that we've worked on together for Choose Women. You're still going to be part of this. Woohoo! And what a phenomenal career. And I think for all of this, I think we should all think about the importance of silence and the importance of inner understanding of what and who we want to be in life, right? Because I think it's now more than ever, we have the time to really think about it. Yes. Sarah, so thank you. And woohoo! Great. Oh, wait, we have one more. What is the biggest problem to solve with business storytelling today?
Oh, wow. With the questions are now coming thick and fast, Wendy. I notice this on Zoom calls. It always takes a minute for questions to come out. What's the biggest problem to solve with business storytelling today? Oh my God, how we bring this country together, how we move forward, how we heal. I don't think there's a bigger question we have to answer, really. How to attract more women to the workplace and engineering. Oh my goodness. I mean, engineering, I really feel, so I have two daughters, and the programs that they watch are unbelievable. Well, the older one, the 7-year-old, she just watches science shows all the time. She just wants to talk about science. She wants to talk about facts. She wants to, we just read this, and she's not even a geeky, like, genius girl. She's just a normal girl who likes rainbow unicorns. But we just read the periodic table. We just read a book over the last 3 months. Every night we read a different element. I just think these kids are now just so much more scientifically literate than we are, because science is packaged to them in very interesting ways. So I think, Scott, I genuinely believe we've got an incredible generation coming up, and it's just how quick we can get them into the workplace. Karen Getty's House of Fashion off the ground. Wow, that's very interesting. Sure, ping me, let's talk. Well, however I can help.
All right, so everyone, thank you. Sarah Watson on LinkedIn. Her social media was shared also when we sent out everybody's thing. Sarah, thank you for being a part of this. Grateful.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for your incredible questions. This is like therapy. This is amazing.
All right. Woohoo. Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming. Okay.